Okay, this is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Brigett.
Hi everyone, my name is Brigett and I am an alcoholic. Thank you so much. I need a drink. Grateful to be here, grateful to be sober. Thank you, Michelle, for having me. Michelle doesn't know me. I'm filling in for someone, so, if you don't like what you hear tonight, see Michelle. That's right, but she called, so... No, I really am blessed to be sober by the grace of a God that I don't understand, but I continue to seek through prayer and meditation. Haven't found. If I have, I'd be gone. You wouldn't have me as a speaker tonight. Sober today also by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous that are outlined in the Big Book, and a lot of very, very patient people. If you're new in this room tonight, I want to welcome you to the Last Chance Saloon, because this is where even the nut houses kick people down to. There's no other lower rung on the ladder, quite frankly. I myself, and from here, where do you go but up? I mean, if you're lucky enough to make it in this room, and the people who took chips, congratulations. Happy birthday to our birthday lady. If you're new, 5 years may look impossible, but it can be done a day at a time. And, there's a lot of patient people. It took a lot of people and a lot of prayers and a lot of meetings to put Humpty Dumpty here back together again. I do have a sobriety date. It wasn't my first one, but hope to God, if I keep doing what I've been doing here, it'll be my sobriety date for the rest of my days, and that is December 17th, 1982. Been sober a little bit over 27 years. Was not the plan. I came here from a gated community, not west of the 405, in case you're thinking that I was raised with a silver spoon shoved up my you-know-what. No, my life was unmanageable when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. Obviously, the state of California was managing it, but I didn't see it that way. I did not see that my life was unmanageable. I had a series of bad boyfriends. I had an alcoholic mother and kind of a really, they call the family dysfunctional now. I just, call it the American family, basically. But if you're an alcoholic and you roll the way the alcoholic rolls, which is to blame, be self-centered, full of fear, self-seeking all the time, and frightened of my own shadow, then you got to blame someone for your existence. You got to blame somebody for that drink. That when I took a drink, the drink took me. It was over. But when I ended up in that, facility, I had time to think. And, our book talks about just having enough time to have a moment of clarity and thinking about where my life used to be and where I had ended up in that moment. Where my life used to be was I grew up wanting to be, I had goals. I didn't grow up aspiring to be a junkie and an alcoholic in CIW. I wanted to be a ballerina or a detective. And I loved reading Nancy Drew books, like I guess the female equivalent to the Hardy Boys. And she was an amateur detective, was 18 forever. She had a rich dad who was an attorney, a maid. She was an only child, and her mother was dead. She had the perfect life. She had her father's credit card in a convertible with her two best friends, and they solved mysteries that the FBI couldn't solve, which may not be much of a stretch. But Nancy could figure it out. Nancy was perfect. Nancy had an exciting life, and I kind of lived vicariously through those books. I wanted an exciting life, and my solution in my head to that feeling of not being good enough, I was always frightened growing up. You've probably heard it. If you're new in the rooms of AA, you probably heard, I just didn't feel like I fit in. A square peg in a round hole. I think that's everybody's story, and, whether that's really true or not, I don't know, but this is a disease of perception. It centers in the mind rather than the body. So I don't know what you think, but I think I know what you think. And you're thinking that I don't belong here. And I know that whatever you're thinking is bad. You know, the crystal ball never has a good reading. And I think I've got a crystal ball. And it's so interesting. Okay, I went with the ballerina thing. My mom said being a detective was not that interesting, nor was it that easy. So I got scholarships in dance. I was very good at it. It was such an escape for me, but a real passion too. And, you know, I never felt good enough auditioning, even though I got in a company, and outwardly you'd say, she's doing great. I didn't feel it inside. My head was telling me, you are not enough. You're not thin enough. You're not perfect enough. You can't do perfect pirouettes enough. If you're perfect, you know, they won't kill you, right? You just walk under the radar. I went to a religious school, and what I heard may not be what they said. I'm not sure. I've not reconciled it to this day, and it doesn't matter. Because a lot of us get here with an antipathy towards a God, formal, organized religion, because it reminds us of what we heard. I don't know what was said, and it doesn't matter, because, you know, I have heard from spiritual teachers, whatever window you happen to be sitting in and you see God go by, continue to sit in that window. Go there often. And that window for me happens to be Alcoholics Anonymous, just for me. But, you know, what I heard in church was, first you're going to die, then you're going to fry. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's what they said, but that's what I heard. Everything I did was a sin. Thinking was a sin. But go to confession, say enough Hail Marys, you're not sinned anymore. Then you go back and do the same shit over and over again. I had Jewish friends that say, I'm converting. All you people have to do is go in that booth and you come out and you're cool. Do it all over again. And, you know, I met these people at a party. I must have been almost 15 years old, and you know, I'm the skinny one, the shy one, the Miss Perfect one, the bookworm one that was at dance class every day after school, and these girls were drinking, and they asked me if I wanted a sip. And what I heard was, "Do you want to come and join us? Do you want to hang out with us?" That's what I heard. I heard, "Do you want to hang with us?" And I desperately needed to have friends. I needed people that I could click with. And so I started drinking what they were drinking. And it was Bacardi 151, and I drank it like they drank it. I didn't have an instruction booklet. And it was awful. I mean, it burned, it was disgusting, but by the time it digested, man, me and my new best friends of 15 minutes bonded. And you know what? I won't ever forget this, because that night, I wasn't scared. I was making jokes with them. I was cool with them. At least I thought. I may not have been, but in my head. See, alcohol does something for me that it doesn't do for a normal person. Alcohol transforms me. You know, it makes me into, you know, a Broadway star. It makes me feel part of the crowd. It makes me feel not a geek. It makes me feel not alone. It makes me not care that my parents are killing each other at home. I don't care. I'm okay. And I wanted that moment to last forever. You know, that night, no one died, no one OD'd, the cops didn't come, none of those things happened. They were all gonna happen later, but they didn't happen that night, so I kept chasing that feeling. And what happened for me is what happens to Bill or most of you guys that get to the rooms of AA. You know, I was more than a problem drinker, because I had some problems drinking. Drinking was fun for a while, and then it was fun with problems, and then it was just straight problems, but I couldn't stop. And given a sufficient reason, I couldn't stop. I had a good reason to stop. Many good reasons. I'll give you one. I was 16 and got kicked out of school. My parents divorced. I was living in a foster home, and alcohol clearly wasn't working in my life. But to me, I just didn't have the right combination of alcohol and other substances that enhance the drinking experience, if you will. And so I thought, you know, I know what my passion is. I love dancing. And drinking is getting in the way, so I'm going to go audition for this show, and I'll get on the road again, and life will be grand, because I'll fill that hole up. I'll substitute it with something. I just won't drink anymore. And, of course, on the way to the audition, I was a little nervous, had a little drink and a little snort of something, and I don't remember anything else until I came to in the hospital a day or two later. Apparently what had happened is I'd blacked out and ran a red light and hit a car full of people, and I went through the windshield. I remember what I remember is waking up and seeing bright lights and hearing people. I thought I was dreaming, because before I woke up, I was looking at my car from above, and people were screaming my name, looking at the car screaming, but I'm above the car saying, I'm over here, can't you hear me? And then I woke up and I'm in the emergency room. Later someone told me, you may have been on your way out, and it wasn't your time. I've heard people in AA, I've heard a couple of good friends of mine tried desperately to kill themselves. One shot himself in the head and ended up in, rehabilitation for 6 months, had to learn how to walk and talk all over again. He was serious about wanting to die. Shut this thing off, and he lived. Another guy put a rifle in his mouth and ended up living. Life support, 15 surgeries in 1 month for an entire year, and he's blind and drools a lot, but he's still alive. I mean, think about powerless. We can't even kill ourselves. We are such people of second chances, or these seats would be empty tonight. So I wake up and, I go to the bathroom, and I still didn't know what had happened, and my face is a complete bloody mess, and I'm dizzy, and apparently I'd gotten in this accident, and my mother had heard about the accident from neighbors. I wasn't living with her at the time, but she was working as a nurse in the emergency room at County General Hospital. She came to where I was in the valley, picked me up, and brought me back to her house. Now, if you love me, you're going down. And I don't mean to hurt people, but when I drink, and I do what I have to do. And what I did was, when I woke up in about 2 o'clock in the morning at my mom's house, I took her television set and walked out the front door. That's the thanks that I give to Mom, who waited up nights for me, who cruised the hood looking for me when I was 16, 17 years old. That's the thanks I get. It's like rescuing a snake, They'll bite you, because that's what they do. And, I walking down the street with that television set to those people that I know are still up at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you know what I mean. The heavier that thing gets, the more I walk, the longer I go, the cheaper it gets. And my mom, her television set sold for probably $20. Thanks. That's the thanks I give. And, I had a sufficient reason to stop drinking, but that's not what happened. What I did was say, I'll never snort that stuff and combine that again. I'll find another substance and I'll take a different street. That's my solution. What propelled me to get to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't have an exciting drinking story. I drank, I hit bottom, I kept digging. I didn't marry a rich guy in a blackout, darn. Collect some great alimony, no. None of that happened. What I did lose was my soul, and I got it back in this program. And that's priceless. That is priceless. Some of the things that we lose out there are such meaningless. Money comes and goes, jobs, cars, all that stuff. But your fingers and toes and your eyesight and your sobriety, you don't know if you'll ever get that back if you go out. So I met a guy who was a professional burglar from New York. I don't know why that impressed me. I guess because he put professional in front of burglar. Woo! He had just robbed a museum. And I thought, oh, that's great. Now we have to find, what we're going to do with this artwork. I knew nothing about art, but we're drinking and driving and thinking, trying to figure it out. We end up in the desert somewhere, and he pulls out this substance that he said will enable us to think more and drink more and stay up. And he didn't believe in snorting anything because it was a waste. So one of the things on my list of things I would never do, I had to cross off. Stick a needle in my arm. I had to cross that off the list because here's what happens for me. I drink them open to suggestions. It starts with alcohol, okay? And why did I do this? Why do I put pills in my mouth? Well, because someone said, do you want these pills? I didn't even ask what they were for. I just said, yes, I do. Take the pills on the floor, very happy there. Okay. So someone says, do you want to stick this stuff in your arm? Well, absolutely. Here you go. I'm decoding license plates. The radio's giving me messages. I can't even open my jaw to drink anymore. I mean, I'm not happy in this condition. And I keep thinking that this Dave character is with the CIA. He wants me and my half a gram and my tequila. So kept asking me if I had to go to the bathroom, and I got paranoid because we're in the desert. There are no bathrooms. There's only cactus. So I know I'm not, I'm not completely stupid. I know he's going to dump me. That's what he's going to do. So I beat him to the punch. And I had a bottle of Valium, I put it in his beer, he got woozy, he pulled over, he passed out cold, and I kicked him out of the car and just took off. And, my best thinking got me to AA. This is just one of my better ideas. Because listen, if push comes to shove, I'm kicking. You're out, because I am not dying in a cactus plant, okay? I'm going to die when I'm good and ready. Now, remember that I said that. I'm going to die when I'm good and ready. How wrong I am, or was. So I get back to Hollywood, knock on the door of one of those people that we call friends, but they're not. They're people that we use to get what we need to get. And he had a solution to my problem. The solution. Now, if you're anything like me, your solutions are worse than your problems. My solutions in sobriety have been doozies, by the way, not just drinking. When I got sober, alcoholics, it talks about this in the book, we suffer from this deep sense of loneliness, this feeling that we just don't belong, even in a crowd of people. This sense of apartness, it's dire in us, and that's why the fellowship is really important. Although one aspect of the program, it's an important one. So I was lonely, so I would isolate. I was broke. I got a credit card with my name on it, first one with my name on it ever, and I'd shop. If I was nervous, I'd drink coffee. I never drank coffee before coming to AA. It wasn't necessary. So this guy has a solution. It's I can stick with drinking, but I have to do heroin instead of coke. Well, okay. So I drooled and nodded and stayed in the moment for a while. But this is really what helped get me to Alcoholics Anonymous. I met a car thief named Mark, who, obviously by this point my life is unmanageable. Now, I don't think it's unmanageable. All I need is the right guy and some cash. Wouldn't cash solve everything? Because then I could get my own place. Not that I could maintain it. I was unemployable, but let me get the place, let me get the clothes, let me get the stuff, set me up, and then I can go. Absolutely no tools for living whatsoever. But I don't know this, you see. I don't know that I have a disease called alcoholism. I'm just thinking, which got me here to begin with. So Mark just stole a car. And he was too drunk to drive, and we have a destination. We have a place to stay that night, so I'm driving the car. And I was in that car 10 minutes, and we get pulled over by the police. And, they take it very seriously, grand theft. I didn't know this. I was one of those silly little alcoholics that would get busted for, little things. I call them little things. Out of jail in a few days, go to court, case dismissed. Okay, I got some problems. I can deal with it. I can roll with this. I'll figure it out. I'll get out of it. I always do. This was different. Now I got serious problems because they had us out at gunpoint. And the guy that I'm with, Mark, whose name later turned out not to be Mark, said, hey, I was hitchhiking. I've never seen her before. So, yeah. So now I'm at that stage where it's no more fun with problems. I'm in straight problems, but I still can't stop drinking. And this is when I started to get that terrible sense of doom where quicksand stretched all around me. It was quicksand. I'd pulled my life over my ears, and now I had no way out. And I started to think that drinking might be a problem, but I had no idea how to stop. I couldn't. I ended up having to report to a probation officer. I had a court date. In between times, they said, you need to go, if you're going to go to court, I really suggest you go into a live-in program. I'd never even heard of one before. They asked me where I lived, and I said, well, what my address was. I had to fill this piece of paper out, and I said, I don't really have an address. And she said, oh, you're homeless. That really was distasteful. I was put off by that. Homeless? I mean, homeless is, shopping cart, plastic bags, bottles. I'm just in between places right now. I'm not homeless. And then I made up an address of, whoever. I go to this recovery house. They take us to meetings. My first meeting was hole in the ground in Highland Park, and it really was a hole in the ground. A lady took a cake for a year. The room exploded with applause, and I did not get it. I didn't get it. I was so uncomfortable in my seat. I wanted to tear my skin off. I couldn't hear what they were saying. The basket would come by. I'd see people putting money in, and I'd want to take money out, and I'd just take the basket away from me. They're leaving. They're going into a break. I kept thinking, can I leave here? Can I go sit in the bathroom till this is over and we get back in that crazy van and I get back to that crazy house? And she hadn't had a drink in a year. The room applauded, and I thought, that's not funny. She hasn't had a drink in a year. That is not funny. There's nothing cool about that. I was barely making it at 42 days. Apparently I had an attitude problem because they made me wear a muzzle for a week. And if you're new here, this is not AA. You know, the treatment centers, this was a 9-month kind of crazy attack therapy program that took you to AA meetings. It's like triage. They stop the bleeding there, so you get physically sober. The program is in Alcoholics Anonymous. Once they kick you down to us, you know, forget how you feel. Don't want to know how you feel. We know you feel bad. Keep talking about your feelings. Do you want to feel better, or do you want to know why you feel so bad? Do you want to feel better, or do you want to know why you feel so bad? If we tried to figure out, if I know why I feel so bad, I won't feel so bad anymore and I'll stop drinking. If we waited to figure out why we know we feel so bad, we'd be dead. We got to stop drinking first. And we take these contrary actions that will eventually change your thinking and the way you feel based on the 10 steps in between 1 and 12. But the not drinking part's really important. Got to do that first. So I'm in this recovery house, and they muzzle me, and then they threw me out. Apparently the muzzle didn't work. And they said, you know, this program will ruin your drinking. And I said, not if I drink enough. And I took my $10, and I'm sitting on a bus stop in Pasadena on Fair Oaks with a plastic bag over my shoulder, calling these people losers. Now, isn't that the irony of the alcoholic? My life is in a plastic bag. You know, and in that plastic bag, I think I had a pair of toe shoes. I don't know why. Just a memory of what it used to be like. You know, how does a girl go from being straight A's to scholarships in dance to on her way to CIW? It's called alcoholism. It's not a moral issue. It's not a bad or good thing. It's not right or wrong. It's a disease. And how do you go from that to 27 and a half years sober with a life and some dignity, and going from being a chick to a woman? It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got that in the big book. You know, I got that from good sponsorship. I got that from actually reading the book and saying, you know, I heard something funky in a meeting tonight. I'm not quite sure if that's right. Let's check it out. It's very helpful because the fellowship is terrific, but the fellowship alone is not the program. You know, I can access the fellowship, dump my problems, and leave. But that's not what we do here. You know, I've got to get that conscious contact. I've got to know what my character defects are. I've got to know what drives that self-centered fear. I've got to know what my triggers are, or I'm completely insane, stone cold sober. And I didn't know how nuts I was till I was 5 years sober, quite frankly. And eventually I got there. Got busy in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got commitments. I did opposite actions. I remember not having a place to live when I first got to AA, and Alabama Carruthers at the Radford Clubhouse, wonderful woman. I was grumpy and complaining and not quite sure I was going to stay that night, and I had been staying in a motel with some people from Cry Help, and they all went and got loaded, and it was just, my life was a mess, but I was sober for 2 weeks. I was sober. And I said to her, you know, I got nowhere to live, and I don't even know what I'm going to eat. And she said, you know what, go back and help that guy set up the chairs. The meeting's about to start. And I'm thinking, look, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I have nowhere to live. That equals set up chairs. That's my solution. You people are nuts. That's whacked. That's not an answer. But something happened for me that I didn't manufacture. I walked back there and helped this guy set up chairs. You know why? My scorecard's read 0. I had no other ideas. I hope that you're out of ideas. And if you've got some, would you please share them with somebody so we could have a good laugh? Because this group likes to laugh, I noticed, which is a good thing. So I go back to help this guy set up chairs, and I'm grumbling, and someone asks me how I am. Oh, I'm so glad you asked, because I'm going to barf on you immediately. So I'm telling them, oh, you know, this and that. I was in Crow-Help, and this motel, and I've got to go, blah, blah, blah. And this guy says to me, you know, Connie's looking for a roommate. Who, really? Connie? She's looking for a roommate? Yeah, I think we'll talk to her about you moving in. I don't have a job. Really? This guy Frank V, that was at like every meeting the newcomers were at, he was really big on keep coming back and repeating the mantras like some AA crackpot. But it was helpful. It was helpful to put that in the hamster wheel instead of drink, drink, drink. He took me to Bob's Big Boy. I got my first job. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone with an attitude problem waiting tables, but I was, you know, I got my first job, and Connie let me move in, $50 a week. All I did was walk back and help some guy that I didn't want to help and didn't even want to talk to set up some chairs at a meeting. That's all I did. I took an opposite action, contrary to my best thinking, which was to tell that old woman to go screw herself, and does anyone have any cash? All I did was set up chairs. You know, I got fired from that job. I threw food at someone. I had this idea that I've had a rough life and the world should tip accordingly, and that's not true. And you know, it's interesting because I'd heard in meetings, I went to 2 meetings a day for my first 4 years of sobriety, that the only thing you got coming today, Brigett, if you don't drink, is another day sober. What you don't have to do is go spit on people that you wouldn't be near if they were on fire and spend time with them because you want to drink. You don't have to break the law. You don't have to sleep in the backseat of an abandoned car. You don't have to go beg, borrow, or steal for alcohol. You don't have to grovel and let yourself be treated like a piece of garbage. How's that for a good day? All right, sounds good to me. You know, my head will take off and tell me something different. I got something else coming. You people should tip me more. I shouldn't be working anyway. This is for losers. So I set myself up to get fired. And I'd made this deal with myself that if I got fired from Bob's, it was meant to be that I drink. Doesn't that make sense? You say, yes, I'm in the right room. Yeah, it makes sense. So I thought the same thing, quite frankly. So I'm walking down Van Nuys Boulevard, slinging the apron in the bushes. I've got $25, good round figure. And I'm thinking, boy, losers. Those people are losers. I don't want to work at Bob's. This guy, Frank V, rolls up in his truck and asked me if I wanted a ride. Now, I'm one of those newcomers that's so self-obsessed, I think the people with time are looking for us and checking out to see if are you drinking? Are you thinking about drinking? She's walking like she wants to drink. So I'm too paranoid to say, no, I don't want to ride. Get in his truck. And this was my first spiritual experience in AA, a 12-step call that I made I didn't even know I was going to make, and this woman made it on me. He said, I need to make a stop, and we stopped at these projects out in Pacoima. What he did was he was bringing a woman a 90-day chip. She had 3 kids. They all had the flu, including her. She couldn't get to a meeting. Her husband stole their car, crashed it, took all the rent money, hadn't paid the rent in 2 months. She had an eviction notice, a 3-day or quit. She's got 3 kids, no car, no money. But she had 90 days sober, and that's all that woman cared about. That's all she cared about. She didn't want anything from Frank except bring me my chip. And she cried and said, you know, you can't buy what I have at Tiffany's. She cried. And those kids were sitting there looking at their mom. And the 3 of us stood there, the 3 of us, like the triangle, that amazing 3. And in that moment, something happened, and I realized that it was not necessary to take a drink. And that didn't happen because I figured it out. That didn't happen because I kept walking down Van Nuys Boulevard. That happened because some divine intervention called another alcoholic. I was blessed that that guy drove down the street. I just happened to be walking when he was driving. Coincidence, God's way of staying anonymous. And I may have thought about drinking many times after that, poo-pooed AA, said screw life, but I haven't done it. I haven't picked up that drink. And, you know, I mentioned 5 years as being this, you know, highlight for me was at 5 I thought I'd be cured. And I'll never forget that I took a cake for 5 years and I was really depressed. really depressed. You know, I thought that I would be less afraid, I'd be less neurotic, I would have been more evolved financially, and it just wasn't the case. I didn't realize this at the time, but in retrospect, I can see that I was stone cold sober. I was stone cold sober and got it. I didn't know this is what I was getting, that I have alcoholism, not alcoholism. That it's a disease that centers in the mind, not the body, and it's a lifetime deal. That I've got to watch this beast like a cat watches a mouse through these steps, or I'm a goner. You know, and I may not drink right away. It may take me a few years. You may see me on the news a couple times first in a road rage case or killing somebody. But I'm on my way, because alcoholics are prone to anger and resentment. I'm like a lint trap for resentments. I mean, just a flypaper. Come on, you got a resentment, tell me about her, because I'll hate her for you too. Let's just go there. We're prone to anger. It's part of the ism. It's part of this disease that we are born with. You know, I can look back at my childhood and say, you know, I was always passive aggressive. I was always that way. I was frightened, but I wanted stuff from people. I was not an unconditional giver. I wanted something. All that perfect stuff, you know, I wanted to pay off. It wasn't for fun and for free. Nothing was for me until I got into this program. So I take this cake. I'm not happy. I go to my mom's house. Now, I didn't really, my motives, I had motives. Sure, I had motives. My motive was, you know what, Mom will say, oh, honey, I'm so glad you're sober. Let's go to lunch. Let me buy you an outfit. This is so great. I'm so proud of you. And what happened was I got to my mom's house, knocked on the door. She said, come on in. I could tell she'd had a few drinks just by the way she spoke. And I went in, and the first thing I did was I went to the refrigerator to get some iced tea, and I opened the freezer to get ice. I'm telling this story for a reason. I opened the freezer, and my cat was in the freezer. Oh, my God. Yeah. The cat was dead, just so you know. Maria had lived a long life. She was 24 years old, long time for a cat. Died of natural causes. Mom just didn't know what to do with her when she died. Now, it's December. You know, it's December 1987. It's, you know, holiday time. I'm thinking, oh, maybe that was just a turkey with a long tail. That's my denial. It's not the first time I'd gone back to the scene of the crime. It's not the first time. And it wasn't the last either. I left there, and I was even more depressed. I said, Mom, you know, I haven't had time to bury her. Okay, I gotta go. So I called Alabama, and she said, why'd you go to your mother's house? I said, well, I was kind of depressed, and I thought, you know, maybe she'd be happy to see me sober. At 5 years, it's pretty big, and maybe we'd go to lunch, and, you know, and she said, and you'd get, like, praise and applause and all that. And I said, yeah, it would have made me feel better. And she said, you went to get, didn't you? You went to get. Self-seeking even when trying to be kind. You know, made decisions based on self, and they always placed me in a position to be hurt. So she said, you know, you tortured that woman for years. You were to show up and say, Mom, thank you for being in my life, and thank you for allowing me in your house. I just want to let you know that you can sleep because your daughter is sober. You can sleep soundly. And thank you, by the way, for taking care of my cat while I was in the gated community, Mom. Did I say that? No. No. You know, she said, you're going back to the scene of the crime trying to get something that is not there. And you need to embrace your spiritual family in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that doesn't mean networking in the nut house, you know. That's a term that I use about a lot of things, whether it's going back to a family who can't give you what you want, a dysfunctional situation, trying to be the king or queen of AA. Who wants to be king or queen of the nuts? Not me. But you know, I have to keep my spiritual condition in shape. And how do I do that? Well, I did another inventory, a really big deal inventory, and my family was in a lot of it. And I had a lot of amends to make to those people. My first inventory was about what they did to me and the amends that they owed me, because I was a victim, you know, speaking victimese for years. And a victim, you know, the payoff is you never get to grow up. You know, alcoholics, not all of us come from funky childhoods. Not all of us come from abuse. You know, this disease does not know boundaries. Doesn't matter what your zip code is, whether you graduated from Harvard or you got your GED at Folsom. It doesn't matter. It's an equal opportunity destroyer. You know, puke looks the same on Gucci as it does Ross Dress for Less. It doesn't matter. Not all of us have rotten childhoods, but most of us have extended ones, you know. I had to really start to grow up at that point, and, you know, I just want to wrap up with, in the last 14 years of my sobriety, I think the most intense growth has happened. You know, just as a result of doing the deal around here, getting a sponsor, taking commitments, actually reading the book, doing the best of my ability to apply the things that I've learned in there, going through the book with another alcoholic, you know, seeking God alone, seeking spiritual matters alone is dangerous. That's something out of the 12 and 12, because I'll say, my head will say, well, you know, the solution is the Bodhi tree. It's not here. What do these people know? They laugh. It's not funny. My life is serious. Let's go meditate for a while and think about it. If that's all I do and I don't have an alcoholic to talk to, I'm gone. I'm gone. Because no one understands road rage like you guys do. See, I say what's on the inside of my head to some people, and they're like pulling the silverware over to their side of the table. You guys laugh and go, man, yeah, it's a good thing I don't have a crowbar in my car, because I had, my brother overdosed when I was 13 years sober, and he had 90 days in AA at one time. He'd been in and out of prison a few times, and probably was in his late 20s, early 30s, got 90 days, and something happened, and he took charge again and went out and drank. And never came back. My brother, he drank and did some other substances, and you know those great people we hang out with, when he wouldn't come to consciousness, they dumped his body in a parking lot somewhere, and eventually called 911, but it was too late. When the paramedics found him, he hadn't been breathing, and he was in a coma. And in that year he was in a coma, I hated God. I hated AA. I hated anyone who took a bunch of 30-day chips, because my brother had one chance and everybody else keeps coming back, and the door seems to swing for them, and it didn't for him, and I was furious. And when he came out of that coma, he is so brain damaged that for the last 14 years he wears a diaper, he's bedridden, he can't walk or talk, and he eats with a feeding tube inserted into his stomach. And my mother, the guilt-ridden Al-Anon, I shouldn't take her inventory. The guilt-ridden mother who can't put her son in a home, she refuses, she takes care of him. She changes his diapers, she gives him his medicine. I go and see him on a regular basis, and it breaks my heart. It has for 14 years, and I will never get that piece of my heart back. But what I've come to discover in the last 14 years is that when I say that I'm sober by the grace of God, that's the truth. Because my ideas did not get me to AA. I didn't want to be here. I didn't decide one day I was going to be sober and just made it sober. That was a gift, because I had decided to stop drinking many, many times, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Something intervened, that thing you can't explain, and I was willing to show up in a meeting and not take a drink when I felt bad. Where does that come from? I'm here, Louie's not. Is he under God's grace? Absolutely. A God that I don't understand and won't while I'm breathing. So if you think you know why, don't tell me after the meeting, because people that think they know God, I run from. I try on a daily basis to experience my fellows and be a worker among workers and keep seeking. That keeps me in the game. I've had problems in sobriety that I thought were unsolvable. I had a heart aneurysm 4 years ago. It burst, a condition I didn't even know I had. 10 minutes from my life being over, they fixed it in surgery. And they said, I can't believe you waited so long to get to the hospital. My fear was I didn't have health insurance. Now how alcoholic is that? What's cheaper, a funeral or Cedars? A funeral, trust me. I got the bill and almost had another heart attack. But the point is this. It took a lot of effort and a lot of footwork, but that $125,000 bill got taken care of. I got the health care I needed. I got to see the doctors I needed. A lot of work and a lot of humility. You know, a woman with I'm in graduate school. I'm English speaking. I'm down at a county welfare line at 5 o'clock in the morning, saying, "Help me." You want to talk about eating humble pie? I said, God, why'd you let me live? I wasn't grateful. I can tell you today that the 7-step prayer has come true because I've met a lot of people that were in a similar situation, that victory over my problems, I can bear witness to them and say, this is how I did it. I'll help you. I'm here today, healthy. You know, I have a roof over my head. I'm almost finished with my master's degree, just got to do my thesis. But most important, I'm sober. And I'm emotionally sober. And I'm grateful to be here. And I believe that life is a broad highway, and that we're all on this adventure together. I hope that if you're new here, you stay and find here what I have found here. And with those of you who have time and you're thinking about not coming back, keep coming back, because we've got a God that's way bigger than any problem or any crazy thought that any of us can possibly come up with. Thank you for paying a 12-step call on me.